You're watching a conversation with Media Shala, and today with us we have Mrs. Charu Shankar, who is an actor, choreographer, and a writer. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us on Media Shala today.
Thank you for having me.
So, my first question to you is: despite having a master's degree in English, what impelled you to embark a career on acting?
Yeah, so I think to me they're not that different, because when I would read a book or I would read a beautiful story, I was already imagining what these characters looked like or dressed like or spoke like, how, जो लाइनें लिखी हुई हैं वो कैसे बोल रहे हैं, उनका expression क्या होगा. So I was already imagining all these things in my head. A lot of us do that. Don't you do that? When you read a book, you can see it like a movie. Right? So that's why when people actually see movies based on books, they always find them slightly disappointing, because in their mind that movie already exists. As it did with me, and I was very fond of reading. I still am. I always carry a book in my bag.
So which book do you have right now?
I have a book called Remarkably Bright Creatures. It's a novel about an octopus. Yeah,
great.
It's a very nice story.
Might be interesting.
Yeah, and the book I just finished reading is called Lessons in Chemistry, and that's a book about a woman scientist living in 1960s America and how she makes it, despite being a woman. And at that time, women were not really regarded as important in science. So, and I always am reading like 2 or 3 books at a time.
That's great. That's impressive, actually.
It's just interesting. It keeps me occupied.
Beyond your pursuit in writing and acting, how do you prefer to occupy your leisure time?
I have a dog who keeps me quite busy, and I have a son. He's 9 years old and he's quite badmash. So yeah, I think mostly in my free time I try and spend time with my boys.
That's great. Among the myriad literary works, you've encountered both fictional and factual. Which character resonates with you the most? And which character would you like to be portrayed?
You mean which one I would like to portray?
Yes.
I think the one that resonates with me the most would be Mehrunissa from my show Siyasat. Mehrunissa was a very interesting character. She grew up to become Noor Jahan, who was at the time the Empress of India, and so that was a very, very interesting character to play. And I got to play her whole life. I got to play her from the time she was 16 to the time she was like 38 or something. So it was a nice long span in which बहुत कुछ हुआ उसकी जिंदगी में. She fell in love, she got her heart broken, she got married, she had a bad marriage, had a child, lost a child, was in a war, murdered something. I mean, everything, So it was a full life. And also it was a historical, so that was very interesting. So I think Mehrunissa is the one that I would perhaps resonate with the most, because I poured the most of my soul into that character. I mean, you do end up, putting a lot of your soul into every character, but Mehrunissa I stayed with for a long time and has stayed with me for a long time.
Seems like you love historical things.
I do love historical things. They are my favorite. Sort of kind of cinema, because I find that it becomes very immersive. In a historical, it's not like you're sitting in any kind of normal setting. Everything, the sofa would be dressed up, to be like 400 years old, or whatever. Like, it's the costumes, the set, the language, everything changes. Even if the historical is as far away as like 50 years ago, even that becomes historical. The cars are different. There's big ambassador cars. There's no internet. There's no mobile phones. Like, even those things change everything. So I do love it.
That's informative. Might you elucidate upon your tenure working on Siyasat, your inaugural foray into televised performance a decade prior?
Siyasat sort of happened completely by accident. I had a small role in a movie called The Reluctant Fundamentalist, which was directed by Meera Nair. And it became a massive hit all over the world. I had a very tiny role in it, but I had met Meera and I'd, of course, worked with all these people. So I happened to be there for the premiere of the film in India. And so was in the same premiere, so was the director of Epic Channel at the time, who was looking around for somebody to cast as Mehrunissa for the flagship show Siyasat. And they had not been able to find anyone. They had, I believe, auditioned many people, and koi mila nahi tha. And he saw this film, and he saw, I mean, literally in that film, there are like a few seconds of me. And he saw it, and he said, "Who's this girl?" And he knew Meera Nair, so he went and spoke to Meera Nair and said, "Can you give me her number and can you put us in touch?" And Meera said, "Yeah, that's Charu, here's her number." And so it was completely by accident, and it's sort of a happy coincidence that Siyasat came my way. And then everything just moved along very quickly. I had never imagined that I would be doing television or film or theatre. Or, like these boundaries don't really mean anything to me as long as it's a good story and something that resonates with, just strikes a chord somewhere. I'm happy to be a part of these projects. So that's how Siyasat came to be.
Siyasat seems like a benchmark to your career.
It really was. It taught me a lot. I think more than anything else, Siyasat definitely taught me the craft of acting in front of a camera.
That's nice. Which literary and cinematic genre do you harbor or
Particularly?
Affinity for?
Historicals, like I said. I also really enjoy sci-fi. And I would love to be a robot somewhere in some film, or an android. That would be great fun. And I also quite enjoy, I don't enjoy watching horror, but I love the process of shooting a horror film, because that's great fun. That's full-on comedy happening, on the set. So yeah, I would love to be like Diane or Chudel or, like Makdi or something. That would be my dream role. And nobody casts me like that. So I always say this in every interview. I'm like, please somebody cast me as Nagin, because I would be a great Nagin. Okay.
Finally, what profound adage would you extend towards the forthcoming generation?
Be kind to the planet. Be true. Find a purpose. I think in this generation, I find that there are so many distractions that very often we don't end up committing to something that really resonates with us. We end up brushing it under the carpet. So if you find that something that drives you, you find something that really gives you a sense of purpose and that sense of, go with it. That's what I would say.
That's actually very compassionate for helping others. So
it's not really about helping others. You can't really help anybody else unless you help yourself first, right? Like if your glass is half empty, what can you really do for anybody else? So I guess what I'm trying to say is make sure that your own glass is full. You are full to the brim with happiness, with joy, with a sense of purpose, with something that you really enjoy living. And once you yourself enjoy living, only then you can really do anything for anybody. And that's not selfish. It's not selfish to make sure that your glass is full. It's more compassionate to other people and to the planet eventually.
That's a great thinking, ma'am, I would say. Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence. This is me, Rishika, signing off from Media Shala with our guest, Mrs. Charu Shankar.